let's move on to player ratings. We're going to start off with Big Vic. 5s all round for Vicario. And look, he barely had a save to make throughout the game. That's the reality. He did make one good save. But apart from that, I mean, he didn't get close to any of the goals. He was weak from set pieces. I felt Ben White was like bullying him at times. He didn't stand up for himself, which was the real frustrating thing for me. I mean, especially in a North London derby, you need to be able to stand up for yourselves. You can't show that weak mentality, and I think he did that.
Yeah. That's what I mark him down with. His performance from set pieces was frustrating. He should be doing a lot more to make sure that Arsenal players aren't getting to him, aren't allowing him to be stuck on his line, on out muscling him and stuff like that. And that unfortunately did happen. You know, that third goal, as much as Havertz pushes Van de Ven, I think it's inside the 6-yard box, isn't it? It's quite close. I think a lot of keepers come out and punch that, and he wasn't able to because he was being held back he was being pushed by an Arsenal player. He shouldn't be allowing that to happen. So very frustrating. Did make a very good save from Saka in the second half with his feet. That was a really good save, actually, because at that point it would have been 4-0, and then it really would have been an embarrassment if that goes in. So it does well there. But that's actually the only shot on target the whole day that didn't go in, so on both sides.
But he's got as much as we need to start defending these set pieces better, he's got to be doing better at commanding his box. It's too many times now where we've seen Vicario come under pressure from these set pieces, and it feels like it all started at that Everton away game, and then everyone's kind of clocked on to a weakness that Vicario has, and he's getting found out a little bit in those aspects, unfortunately. Pedro Porro up next. Sim gives him a 7. I gave him a 6. I thought defensively he was on point throughout the game. I don't think much got past him. But what I had a real problem with Pedro Porro was probably his offensive play, where he was getting in positions to cross the ball in quite a number of times in that second half, and it was just... I seem to be saying this with Pedro Porro quite on a regularity recently, maybe not the Newcastle game, but defensively good, but offensively he's not giving us what he was maybe in the first half of the season.
Yeah, I felt in that second half he did get into a lot of good positions, and a lot of his crosses went into Reyes' arms, so that's going to be very frustrating. He did play a really great ball over the top to Son right at the end of the first half, pinpoint long through ball, which Son did get on the end of and blazed over the bar, unfortunately. So that was really good. I think he took some good set pieces, which Romero nearly got on the end of, so I think he gets praised for that. I thought he dealt with Trossard quite comfortably on the day as well. But yeah, some of his deliveries in the second half when we were really putting Arsenal under pressure, and we know he's got the quality, especially when you've got the likes of Richarlison and Romero in the box, he's got the quality to put it on one of their heads, and unfortunately he didn't do that, so gets a mark down for that. But I thought he had a pretty good game overall.
Cuti Romero up next. Sim gives him a 9. I gave him an 8. I thought it was a brilliant display from Romero, probably our best player on the day. From a defensive standpoint, from an offensive standpoint, he was everywhere, pressing high up the pitch, becoming an attacker at some points in the game. He was our closest to another goal. You know, he hits the post, he gets that goal from David Reyes, poor pass out the back. He had another shot as well throughout the game. I just thought he was absolutely everywhere, showing his aggressive streak. Ange commended his display after the game and said that maybe some of the other players should take a leaf out of his book, and I kind of agree with that.
Yeah, he absolutely everywhere, wasn't he? Literally, it's hard to say that for a defender, for a centre-back, sorry, that they're absolutely everywhere, but he quite literally was, covering the whole back line and playing up front for half an hour as well, and being quite effective. Hit the post, had a header wide. He had beat Raya to another one as well, which unfortunately couldn't keep down, headed it over the bar, and obviously just a striker's finish for the goal that he did score, latching onto a mistake from Raya. And I thought defensively was fantastic, getting stuck in, getting stuck into those challenges. Unfortunately, it's difficult to talk about a great defensive display when you concede 3 goals. But I look at the 3 goals we conceded. I don't think Romero was at fault for any of them. So it's just a bit of a weird day where we were really good defensively, yet we're sitting here losing 3-2. But I thought Romero was excellent throughout and probably man of the match.
Yeah, Mickey Van de Ven up next. 8's all round for Mickey. Again, I thought he was brilliant. Obviously got that goal, but it was a slither offside, which was a very frustrating one.
Took it well.
He did take it well. Just like Romero, our centre-backs know how to put the ball in the back of the net. By the way, back on Romero, 5 goals this season. I think the most out of any centre-back this season.
More than Jesus. Yes.
But Mickey van de Ven, I thought, particularly in the second half, is where he earned his money. The amount of times Arsenal looked like they were through on goal, and every single time he was just arriving there like Superman. Nobody could get past him, and even when they did get past him, he was there with his recovery runs to recover that ball time and time again. So without Mickey van de Ven yesterday, we could have conceded 5, 6 or 7.
Yeah, good display. What I would say as well with Mickey van de Ven, I think the first corner comes because Vicario plays a pass out wide to him, which wasn't a great pass, but as well, he was struggling to play out the back. He gives the ball away, and Arsenal get in a dangerous situation, get a corner, and they end up scoring from it. So I do think there are situations sometimes with Van de Ven where he doesn't look that comfortable when he's trying to play out the back. I don't think he's as comfortable as Romero for sure in terms of using his passing. Although there was some situation, he did a nice clip ball over into Ben Davies into space, which was really good stuff from him. So there was some good stuff. Obviously, he did have the goal, and yeah, as you say, that second half I thought it was absolutely astonishing, especially in those last 20 minutes where we could have easily be counted on a few times.
And he was on his own. He was completely on his own.
It was a one-man show in that second half. And I just loved it. I remember there was a few times where we lose the ball and Arsenal played a long ball over the top and Martinelli's running onto it. And we had the guy behind us going, he's got no chance. Talking about Martinelli, not Van de Ven. He's like, he ain't going anywhere. And then Van de Ven, you just see him getting in front of him and bam, he wins the ball back. And I thought he had, just for those last 20 minutes, he gets an extra 2 points, I think, because he was incredible.
But it highlights again the over-reliance on one player at the back with Mickey van de Ven. I know Romero was brilliant, but without Mickey van de Ven, the system don't work.
Well, I think in the second half, no, that bit it's a bit different because we're throwing caution to the wind.
But we've seen it time and time again this season.
We have, but not one defender back like that. That's like the
But
first
I'm
time
talking about that Mickey van de Ven recovery runs. I mean, how many times have we seen it that season where he just gets us out of jail?
Yeah, 100%. We are very reliant on him. So but look, when you got to be fair, when you've got a defender with that kind of pace, you might as well use it. You know what I mean?
Next up is Ben Davies fielding at left back. 5s all round for him, and he struggled. Man, he really did struggle with Bukayo Saka. Everyone knew that he was going to struggle with coming up against a winger like Saka on the day, and that's exactly what happened. It culminated in him just trying to take lumps out of him in that second half to try and contain him, but. Look, I think he did struggle on the day defending against Saka, but I thought for the most part, when he wasn't coming up against Saka, he was all right, to be fair.
Yeah, he did some good things. He was aggressive on some occasions and did win the ball back, and he made some good crunching challenges and got the crowd up. In a weird way, even though Saka scored a goal in the first half, I thought in the first half he actually didn't have too much trouble against Saka, apart from the one time where he did and ended up scoring, obviously. But I thought in the second half he did really struggle. Every time they got the ball to Saka, he was taking him on, beating him, getting closer to the goal, and he had to resort to just fouling him time and time again to stop him. There was no other option but to foul him. So it was a bit of a mismatch, I thought, especially in that second half. I don't think it was a shocker by any means from Davies, but definitely I don't come out of that game thinking he competed with Saka, because I thought Saka had him on toast most of the time.
Yeah, but it was good to see as well, though. Like, if you know that you're going to get beaten, just take him out, and that's what he did for the most part in the second half. Next up is Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. 5s all round for him. A surprise inclusion. Everyone was shocked when they saw him on the team sheet, me included, and I think it was the wrong decision from Ange. I really do. I don't think he impacted much of what we wanted to do. He was aggressive in the middle of the park, but I do feel like he was found out a little bit. Scores that own goal, which shouldn't be happening, and it kind of just... When he went off, it was rightly so.
Yeah, I also do blame him for the own goal. I think the reason he scores that own goal is his own doing, because he's not goal side to Tomiyasu, making himself stretch, which means that he's forced to head it backwards, and he ended up conceding the own goal. So I do think it was his mistake. It wasn't just one of those own goals that was unlucky. I think he made a mistake from that. I think on the ball as well, I did think he struggled. I didn't think he used his passing range enough, and when he was being pressured and he was asked to play his way out of trouble, I think he had a lot of trouble doing that. But yeah, I do agree on when we were counter-pressing them and we were getting in those aggressive phases of play, he was very much part of that, and he was doing a good job winning the ball back for Spurs. But unfortunately, he showed exactly why A lot of the times he hasn't been trusted this season.
Bentancur up next. Sim gives him a 5. I gave him a 6. I thought he started the game really well, being aggressive in the middle of the park, putting in the tackles and interceptions, showing a bit of silky skills as well. But I just felt like once he reached a peak, maybe like 10, 15 minutes into the game, he was just weaning out the game for the rest of that first half, and he did get taken off at half-time. Probably rightly so, because Pat Matissa, who came on in the second half, was a lot better from him, showed a lot more energy levels, and maybe it's just we're seeing Bentancur coming back from that long ACL.
Yeah, and again with Bentancur, he seems to be better when he's in the opposition half, when he's in our own half, or when he's in the opposition half and he's pressing high and he's winning the ball back and he's keeping the ball. He seemed to be quite effective, but as soon as Arsenal got into our half and he was asked to cover a lot of ground and get into position, I thought he was struggling quite a bit, and that was unfortunate. He doesn't seem to be able to cover the ground he used to just yet. And I think we've seen that over the last couple of games against Newcastle and this one, where he's asked to cover a lot of ground. He's finding it difficult still, which is why probably we need Sarr back in the team. Not to say he'll never get back to those levels, but clearly he's still struggling with it. And unfortunately, he was rightly taken off at the break.
James Maddison up next. 4s all round for Maddison. And when you have so much possession and you need someone to pick the lock, you need someone to play through the eye of the needle, and he just didn't do that. I felt like every time he got the ball, he was just so frustrating. And even off the ball, where all season, even when he hasn't been good this season, he's been really good off the ball with his, duels and tackles and just being a nuisance in the middle of the park, dropping deep and that. I just don't think he did that yesterday, and he's a major cause of frustration yesterday, and I thought he was our worst player on that pitch.
Yeah, he was pretty anonymous, to be honest, which is not the kind of performance you want from your supposed biggest creative force, your talisman in that central midfield. You need him to be taking responsibility. You need him to be bringing those magic moments. You need him to pull something out of the bag, and unfortunately yesterday, he was pretty anonymous. When he did try things, they weren't coming off. He didn't try too many of them as well. A lot of the times he was just playing safe. And he seemed to tire pretty quickly. I think he was rightfully taken off. I thought at the moment Arsenal were on top in those first 20 minutes of the second half. Maddison seemed just anonymous. He wasn't getting involved in duels. He wasn't getting stuck in. He wasn't standing up to be counted. And it was a really poor performance. I'm not saying he didn't try, because I do think he tried. I just think on the day, he was a really, really bad day for him. He didn't, win enough duels. He didn't create anything. And when he's not doing that, you got to take him off, and that's what we did.
Yeah, and it seems to be happening, maybe not as bad as this, but it seems to be happening way too often now with James Maddison. I mean, I can't remember since he's been back from injury. I mean, he hasn't played well by any stretch of the imagination. Maybe in a couple of games, he scored against Aston Villa, he got a goal, an assist in one of the other games as well. But it's a shadow of the player that we saw in the first 10 games of the season.
Yeah, that's the reality.
Next up, Dejan Kulusevski. Sim gives him an 8. I gave him a 7. I thought he was our best attacking outlet on the day, especially in the first half. The amount of times he was winning the ball, driving us up the pitch, they couldn't deal with him at times, Dejan Kulusevski. But the reality is, however good he was in those aspects of the game, which he was brilliant with his ball carrying ability. We didn't test Raya enough, and I think when you've got an attacking player like Dejan Kulusevski, he's got to be doing more to provide the ball to the attacking players. And Heung-min Son was isolated in the number 9 for the majority of the game, and that is down to the likes of Dejan Kulusevski, Timo Werner, Brennan Johnson, and James Maddison for not offering the deliveries.
I thought Deke had a great game, really great game. I thought they couldn't really handle him when he was on the ball. I thought a lot of the time. He 5 completed dribbles, which is no mean feat against a very difficult Arsenal defence. I think more than anyone else on the pitch as well. Really impressive stuff from Deke. They couldn't get the ball off him. And this is what he can provide for us in the attacking phases of play when he's on his game. He's very difficult to get the ball off because he's so strong. He can muscle away from defenders, and that's exactly what he did. He was unfortunate a couple of occasions, should have had a penalty, very nearly had a penalty in the second half. Partey just gets a touch on the ball, but he makes a driving run down the centre. He did really well to win the ball back high up, and I think he had a shot from 25 yards which got blocked. I think he had a really good cross in to Romero, who headed it over the bar after he beat Romero. So that was after he beat Raya, sorry. So that was a good piece of play. And I actually thought as well, once he moved centrally, he was doing some really good things. He was finding really difficult pockets of spaces. He was allowing us to keep sustain attacks, keep possession in those central areas. But unfortunately, when it came to, especially late in the game, when it came to him providing that little moment of quality, which could have got us a goal, we couldn't really provide that, unfortunately. But I did think, in general play, his ability to his tackling, off the ball stuff, and his ability to dribble and keep possession was outstanding. And really much better than he's performed recently as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He needed that day, Jan Kulusevski, yesterday. But I just want to see him do more in the final third, because I know he's got it in him. Timo Werner, Sim gives him a 5, I gave him a 4. He went off fairly early. I mean, what time did he go off in the game? 30th minute he went off yesterday, and I felt like when he was on the pitch for the first half an hour, he was pretty much anonymous. I think he had about 15 touches on the ball, lost the ball 5 times, didn't provide any crosses, didn't have a shot on goal. I mean, I think he was really anonymous.
Yeah, maybe he was playing with an injury, or I don't know.
Don't play him then if he's playing with an injury.
Yeah, or maybe it's something happened early in the game. Because I don't know, because obviously he was taken off very early. I think it was after a run down the left-hand side as well. So I don't know whether he pulled it at that moment or whether he pulled something earlier in the game and then it caught up to him at that moment. I'm not sure what happened with him. But yeah, it wasn't a great game for him, unfortunately. And obviously replaced by Brendan Johnson fairly quickly.
Yeah, and the last of the starting 11 was Heung-min Son. 6 all round for Sonny. Has that chance in the first half that he blazed over the bar. He's probably, with someone of Sonny's quality, he's got to be doing better from that aspect. Did get that penalty. What a penalty it was, by the way. Raya dives the right way, has no chance with it, puts it in the back of the net for Spurs to go 3-2 down. But yeah, apart from that, he was just being marked out of the game, essentially. And these players that you need, these other players to provide for him when he's in the number 9, especially when you're playing against a low block. It's going to be very hard for Sonny, and it always is playing against a low block. And I think that's what we saw yesterday. And these players like Maddison, Kulusevski, like I mentioned before, the attacking players need to be providing a better service for him.
Yeah, obviously he did have that one chance over the top, which right at the end of the first half, which he should have probably buried. That was the only real time he really threatened him behind. Obviously, Arsenal did set up in a different kind of way than they do in the majority of games, and they were a lot more pragmatic. The defensive line was a lot lower than it usually is. It was very similar to the Man City game. So on that basis, he probably should have shifted Son to the left a bit earlier than he did, and you need a bit of presence in the box if that's how Arsenal are going to be playing. And I did think Sonny improved a bit once he moved over to the left. He did take on Ben White on a couple of occasions. There was one where he did lay it back for Richarlison, but I think Rishi had a shot blocked. It was a really dangerous moment right at the end of the game. But even on the left, to be honest, it wasn't exactly like he was fantastic. He just provided a bit more, but wasn't still struggled to really impact the game fully. I felt on that left-hand side. But yeah, as you say, great penalty in a pressure situation. Gave Raya no chance. And it was nice to finally get a penalty, wasn't it? It's been so long.
Yeah, second penalty all season. I mean, we probably should have had about 3 or 4 just in the game yesterday, which was mad. But it was Brendan Johnson who came on first in the first half. He came on after half an hour for Timo Werner. And I thought actually Brendan... 6 all round, by the way, but I think he actually, he played well to a certain extent, where he had the beating for his fullback, his dribbling ability was on show, he was beating men for fun. But it's his end product once again. Those crosses in the box were just so poor. Every single one was just a floated cross into David Raya's hands, and that was the most frustrating thing. Like, if he would have put good crosses in the box, you're probably talking about an 8 performance with the dribbling ability that he did show on the day. But unfortunately, it's the end product that lets him down.
I thought he was much better once he moved back to the right. I thought he wasn't great on the left, to be honest. So that was a good switch. Once he moved back to the right and was taking on Tomiyasu on his weaker foot, I thought he was much improved, and Tomiyasu was really struggling to deal with him. In fact, I think they had to swap. Did they swap him? Did they put someone else at left back near the end? I can't remember. But anyway, he was really struggling.
Kiwior came on, didn't he?
Yeah, Kiwior did come on. And not only was he doing really good stuff going on the outside, but as well, actually, what I really like about Johnson, he's doing this a few times recently. He's dribbling on the inside when he sees a bit of space, and he knows he's fast enough to look at a small gap inside and go for it. And it was actually causing some trouble for Arsenal there as well. But unfortunately, as you say, when he got into those positions which his dribbling got him into, it wasn't enough to. That's not enough. You got to then show quality at the end of it. And unfortunately, way too many of his deliveries were long floated balls to the back post, which was so easily gobbled up by David Raya. And unfortunately, he didn't have too many opportunities himself to attack the back post on this one, but. The delivery just needs to be better, and that's just a big source of frustration at the moment from our wide areas, that we're just not having the quality delivery at the moment.
Yeah, he had 4 crosses on the day, and none of them went anywhere. I think every single one went into Raya's arms, and that was the big source of frustration there. But let's move on to Pape Matar Sarr, who came on at half-time. 7s all round for Pape, who I thought was brilliant, to be honest, when he came on. I think he really came into his own when we made those other changes in the last 20 minutes, half an hour of the game, where we really dominated and we were looking to create and come back into the game. He just kept us up the field. He kept winning the ball back. He kept recycling the ball, and that press that he had on just kept pushing us up the field and kept us up there. And I love the protection that he gave Heung-min Son for the penalty that we had as well. So I thought Pape was really good, and it probably showed a mistake from Ange not to start him.
Yeah. Agreed. I thought it was a really good second half from him. Covered a lot of ground, brings that energy that we needed, that ability to cover so much space, which was so crucial to sustaining that pressure in that second half. And I thought it was a really good cameo. And yeah, maybe he showed to Ange that he should have been in the first 11, but unfortunately he did pick Bentancur. But yeah, really good second half from Sarr.
Bissouma up next, 6s all round for Biss. I think he came on and did his job well. I think defensively, I think he did well. Passing, I mean, he didn't do any adventurous passing, but what he did do was kept the ball moving and kept the ball ticking. And when he came on was our most dominant phase of that second half, where we just had Arsenal penned in, and I thought he was actually quite an important part of that.
Yeah, I thought he did better than Højbjerg, and Højbjerg was really struggling in build-up, whereas Bissouma did pretty well. I don't think he did anything too special, just kept things simple, but that was kind of what was needed. Let the attacking players do the attacking stuff a bit more, which is fine. Yeah, I thought it was a nice cameo from him. I don't think it was outstanding, but it was better than what preceded him.
Richarlison, 6s all round for Rish, and what he did do was provide us with a bit of a focal point up front, provide us with more aggression in that number 9 role as well. I loved, he probably gets a mark up just for bashing into Gabriel the way he did, but yeah, at the end of the day, he didn't provide too much of a threat for the Arsenal defence.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's not really totally his fault, was it? Because the deliveries into him were not great, and the wide players have to take responsibility for that. But I agree, there were some really good occasions where they played the ball into feet, and whereas Son was losing it a lot, he was able to hold it a bit more and get Spurs up the pitch and bring other players into play. So that was really good to see. But unfortunately, wasn't able to impact the game too much when it came to the attacking phases, trying to score and stuff like that.
And last but not least, Ange Postecoglou, 6s all round. I do think he got his team selection wrong on the day, playing Højbjerg. I think it was a mistake. Potentially not starting Brennan Johnson as well, even though Brennan did come on, didn't provide us exactly with good crossing ability. But I think he just had that better aspect when he was on the pitch than what we did have with Timo Werner. So I think he did get his selection wrong to a certain extent. But having said that, I felt like we did dominate the majority of the game, and you could only go on what you work with, and with the strikers and the attacking players that we do have, I just don't think they're completely fit for purpose in terms of what we're trying to do. And you're playing against a very resolute, a very strong Arsenal team that have got the best defensive record in the league, and you need to be a lot better and a lot clinical with your crosses and with your finishing when you do get in those areas. And I'm not sure if you could put that down to Ange or not. I think it's just the players he's got to work with at the moment. But where you can heavily criticise him is the defensive set pieces. I mean, time and time again, we're asking this question: where's the defensive set piece coach? It's not there. He doesn't seem to think that it's like a crazy problem that we do have, and I think it's a massive blight on him, because he needs to be looking at ASAP. Like, it's our biggest problem that we have at the moment. Every single game we're coming under pressure from these set pieces. Every single game we're conceding from these set pieces, and we should be conceding multiple times in games during them. We did yesterday. We didn't against Newcastle. We could have conceded a lot more than we did, and it's becoming a real thorn in our side. So he needs to take a big look at that. And in terms of his game management, I felt like he made the right subs, but he made them a bit too late, in my opinion. I felt Richarlison probably should have come on at half time, and the changes that he did make, he should have made them a lot quicker.
Yeah, I think Richarlison definitely should have come at half-time because you could see how Arsenal would set up. You'd literally seen it for a whole half. So I don't see why he wouldn't have thought that would have changed in the second half. So I definitely think that should have been changed. Unless Richarlison only had half an hour in him. I don't know what his situation is from the injury point of view. But yeah, I think he should have made them quicker. In terms of the starting lineup, could you argue he made mistakes potentially? But you know what, he's chopped and changed in the midfield and up front recently so much. You know, you could have put any forward line or midfield combination out there, and we could have been sitting here saying it was a mistake. So I don't think the team out there was a bad team at all. I don't think it would have been that different if he would have started with a different team. I think the fine margins went against us, and on another day we could have easily won that game. I think, but as I completely agree with you, the main thing I'm going to criticise them for is the set pieces and also defensive transitions, which was also something we've been catching. You know, it wasn't just the set pieces. Obviously, you look at the Arsenal second. Yes, we should have a penalty, but you look at Arsenal's second goal. Again, it's one long ball over to Saka and it's a goal. It's pretty similar to what happened against Newcastle. One long ball to Isaac and it's a goal. So that's something he's definitely got to sort out as well and look at because we're conceding way too many goals from that point of view, and we're conceding too many goals from set pieces. What I would say is when the play is settled and we're in open play, we do look kind of strong, and then we can pen teams in. Then when certain situations come about, especially when we lose the ball in dangerous situations and allow teams to counter, we look vulnerable. And obviously when we concede corners, we look vulnerable. So those are things he needs to sort out. I think those are things that most teams their first season have a learning curve, and they need to. They have things to learn and they have things to improve, and that's definitely the things we can. I remember Liverpool when they were first under Klopp kept getting caught out in transitions time and time again until not only did they find the right players, but the players they do have got more in tune for how Klopp wants them to set up. So these things take time. It was always going to be difficult in his first season to get all these things right. My biggest frustration is they've been a problem for a while and they haven't been sorted. But just because they've been a problem for a while doesn't mean they're easy to sort. So I'm going to give them a bit of slack. Hopefully next season that can all change. But I thought he coached the game pretty well in terms of the subs he made. We kept in the game. I thought we actually played well during the game as well. We could have easily won that game. So it's frustrating. I'm not going to criticise him. I thought he coached the game well. But there's definitely things you can criticise him for. Yeah.
The only difference, I mean, you have slightly mentioned it there, but between him and Liverpool, I mean, they were playing with like a Lovren at the back and players like that. I mean, you're looking at the back four that Spurs have: Porro, Udogie, Van de Ven, Romero. That's probably going to be our back four for the foreseeable future, right? We're not going to upgrade on any of those players. You probably don't think so.
I don't think they're the problem.
Yeah, I mean, what is the problem then? The midfield?
There's a big problem there. They're not shutting down those transitions anywhere near enough or putting enough pressure on them.
And that. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because when we were at our strongest in the first 10 games of the season, that's when we saw Bissouma at the best, and he was shutting down everything. He was progressive on the ball as well. And we're just seeing anyone that we try in that position, it's just a shadow of that.
You've got to make sure, for example, like Bruno Guimaraes a couple weeks ago, when he's able to pick that ball up, you need someone there instantly on him. And at least... if he's going to get the pass off, you have to put him under pressure so that the pass is accurate or right on the play. If you allow him that little bit of time to get his head up and play the pass, he's got the quality to play someone like Isaac in behind. Yeah, if there's someone on him straight away, bam, that ball comes straight back to us, and we go again, we pen them in. Same with yesterday, Havertz for that ball over the top to Saka.
Brilliant ball, by the way.
Great ball, don't get me wrong, really great. How much time and space did he have to literally look up?
Because they're all complaining about the bloody penalty.
Exactly. He had time and space to look up, play that ball over to Saka, and obviously it's a goal. What we need is our midfielders to be right on that on Havertz, making sure he doesn't have that time and space. So either they're nicking the ball off him or they're putting him under really so much pressure that and quickly that the pass is not as accurate as it should be. So I think a big problem with our defensive transitions is the midfield at the moment.
Yeah. But in terms of Ange Postecoglou as well, I've seen a lot of big criticism come his way, even some to say a narrative online forming about Ange out and all this kind of thing. I think it's absolutely preposterous. People coming out and saying stuff like that. I think you can clearly, well, in my opinion, you can clearly see this team is going in the right direction. Like everything that we've had to deal with this season, from the injuries, from losing Harry Kane on the eve of the season, just everything that has gone against us this season, and to still show that we're in and amongst it, and to show these kind of performances against the top sides in the league this season, I think you can clearly see Spurs going in the right direction. And I think, yes, he's got a lot to work on, and yes, he's got a lot to improve on, but I think Ange Postecoglou is the man to take us forward.
Yeah, and it was never going to be perfect in the first season. It never was, and this is the kind of stuff you need to take. Well, the only thing I would say, and the only thing that is a bit frustrating is, at the end of the season, you want to take some momentum going into next season, and we're in danger of not having that momentum at the moment. Hopefully, between now and the end of the season, we have some good performances, and that can change. We get a few big wins or whatever. But the inconsistency we've shown in the last few weeks has people worried that we're going to take that into next season rather than that good momentum that we should be taking.
Yeah, and it's all on the summer business that we do. We've got a big summer ahead of us, and if we make the right transfers in the right positions, then I have no qualms about it that Spurs will be a big team in this league next season.
Talking about right transfers, you saw who was in the Tottenham Stadium yesterday?
Santiago Jimenez and I can't even pronounce his name, the centre back.
Yeah, the centre. I can't, was there someone else?
Guitruda.
Someone else was also there.
They were both there. Yeah,
I didn't know that. Interesting. I think one to keep an eye on, maybe.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, if we can bring both of them in the summer, because they're both top players, and we've spoken about Santiago Jimenez till the cows come home, but I love him as a player. I really do. And if we do bring Santiago in next season, maybe that's more evidence that Sonny will be our left winger next season.
True.
But yeah, that is your player ratings. We've got a couple of super chats to get through before we move on to the 5 takeaways. But Quado Boateng says it's been 13 games since Man City's FA Cup loss. Why wait till 2-0 before assigning someone to protect Big Vic? Our centre-backs are more clinical than our attackers, which it's hard to disagree against that, to be fair.
After the finishing they showed yesterday, definitely hard to disagree with that. One sec, what's Ange said on Timo? He said yesterday's North London that Timo felt something in his hamstring. That work is being done to figure out the severity. Okay,
well, that could be him for the season.
If it's a hamstring, that could easily be 2 weeks, then a week to get back to much
for the season.
That could be, and if that is for the season, do we take up that option, do you think?
My mind changes on this every week, literally. But I think the point still stands of what we've been saying all along, that if he's our only left wing signing, then I don't want him. If it is the plan to play Son on the left, I still don't want him, because I still think that we need someone better than that. Okay. But if we sign like a Nico Williams and then a Timo Werner to caveat on top of that as well, I think I would take it.
Yeah, I agree with that. If our plan is to sign, basically goes down to this: if our plan is to sign one winger, it can't be Timo. If our plan is to sign 2 wingers, 2 left wingers, I should say, then maybe one of them could be Timo.
Yeah, maybe. Andrew Dean with the super chat saying, in Ange we trust. I have a feeling that he's trying to find his best midfield and sees who he wants to keep. Therefore, he keeps to chop and change his starting 11. But is that a problem though? Like, we're at this stage of the season and he still doesn't know his best midfield.
Is it a problem? Yes. It is a problem, but I would say it's more of a problem for the midfielders themselves than Ange.
Yeah, we were coming into this season looking at our midfield options, and we were like, wow, well, what a midfield we've got. And it's just not worked out that way.
I do think, look, obviously, Maddison, we know his quality. Bentancur's still getting up to speed. Sarr's obviously quality, we know that. Højbjerg's going to leave. And then the only real worry for me is Bissouma. What is going on with him? Is he going to are we ever going to see the Bissouma of the first 10 games again, or is this now his true level? That's the real one that's up in the air for me at the moment.
But you talk about Bissouma, right? First 10 games to now. I mean, is Maddison not showing like similar traits? Like, you're looking at Bissouma, we know he's a quality player as well. We know Maddison's a quality player. What has happened to them?
The difference with Bissouma and Maddison is Maddison had a 3-month injury.
He did have a 3-month injury, but he's been back for a long time now.
He has, but I don't know. I don't know how this injury has affected him or not. If there's any lasting effects or not. Bissouma has not really had an injury. He had malaria, obviously, but I don't know how severe that was. But a lot of it has been him self-inflicted, red cards, and then he's lost his confidence. I don't know if you can put that down to fitness issues.
Is it alarm bells as well that even before the AFCON, before this malaria thing popped about, he was being taken out the Mali team? Like, if he can't even get into the Mali team, like, how is he going to be good enough for us?
Good question.
Which is massive alarm bells with Bissouma, and that's why I think it's imperative for us to get a really strong number 6 in for next season. We have to. That's got to be one of our biggest priorities for the summer transfer window. That and the forward line. It's got to be.
Because the main thing you want from your number 6 is consistency. That's what Rice has. That's what Rodri has. That's their biggest asset. It's obviously they're brilliant players, but they never drop below a certain level. That's their biggest thing. Even when they're not having the best game, they're still like a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
And Bissouma seems like when he's not having a good game, he's like a 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest problem.
Yeah, and I think he needs proper competition for that place next season. I don't want to sell him or anything because I still think he's got a lot to give in a Spurs shirt, but maybe he needs to start the season and earn that place back. Start the season on the bench, and earn that place back with healthy competition for next season.